In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world at sunsky.mysteries.com.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
Well, good evening, everybody. How you doing? Bill Zam here. This is, in fact, our first live broadcast in over a month. Last night's show, where I detailed exactly the issues with my health that led up to my being forced to take time off. That was a taped show, and this one is a live show, which I don't know if anybody's watching it. We have a new pop-up screen. In fact, let me show this to you so that you can see the website where the show resides. For those of you that are wishing to see the live broadcast, it's at USSAMichigan.com. And of course, the talk show feed is right there. The first thing that you see, and our new way of doing the show is very similar to the way other online networks work. When you click the link to see the show, it opens up in a pop-up window, and it's not actually a real pop-up, so you don't have to worry about your browser not allowing it to pop up. It just opens up in a new browser window. It all works by JavaScript and whatnot. It works actually pretty good. And of course, we also have a link right there so that you can see all of the show archives that we have up on the website. More importantly, I am feeling well enough to do 2 shows in a row, although I feel like I have been hit by a semi-truck. The doctors, they got a new torture for me in that they are limiting me to 6 hours of any type of actual work or activity. So I can only work for 6 hours, and then I have to take a break, sit down, take a blow, if you will, until my strength builds back up. In case you're wondering what it feels like after you've had one of these lung infections where your heart is involved and whatnot, you're getting all of these heart palpitations and all this other stuff. It feels like you've gone to the carnival and you've ridden on the Whip-It ride and ridden all of the other rides, and then had a little bit too much cotton candy and a couple of corn dogs too many. Just kind of feel out of sorts, sort of dizzy, sort of, oh, I don't feel good kind of thing. I want to lay down and take a rest. So that's essentially the way that I have been, that I feel after just 6 hours of working. It's pretty disconcerting. But fortunately, as you can see, I'm just sitting here yammering into a microphone with all of my pointless blather. So let's get on with the show. Now, as you know, we are facing an entire community in the federal government that is now seeping into our local governments via various programs and attitudes, that it has become apparent to people that are paying attention. It boils down to one of 3 things. These people are either serial liars, delusional liars, or liars that are creating their own reality. It's one of the three. There is simply no way that these people in the government can actually believe what they are saying and doing. It's like it's like from Obama to Art Carney, the White House spokesliar, to the Department of Justice, to the janitors in the halls of the Pentagon, have all suddenly slipped into some kind of an alternative universe, and we can just happen to see them still. It's like they've gone into the Twilight Zone, and they're in some kind of alternative reality, because none of the things they tell us have any basis in fact. Here is a case in point. I won't even bother with this Libyan thing. Anyone with even half a brain realizes that the United States government is lying to the citizens on that deal in what sure looks like a manner that in the past would have resulted in a drubbing out of office if we still had a decent press corps. Let's instead take a look at the latest ads that Hussein Obama's campaign is running. They're actually attempting to tell people that by their opponent's plan of lowering taxes, that would be Mitt Romney, by his plan of lowering taxes, which would be, from what I've seen, about 20% on people like you and I, the middle class, lower middle class, that government services would be lost because of this. That's a lie. That is a complete and total fabrication. They are actually serious about it too. And that's where it's like they're in some kind of alternative reality. Has any one of you or anyone in the media bothered to notice that they are spending far, far more than is being taken in taxes? Cutting the taxes on one segment of the population is not going to cut any services. They are already spending far, far more than they take in. The government is creating money, and then they're actually buying the bonds that finance that money. It's a house of cards that can only lead to economic doom. Everybody sees it, except the people in the government. They're delusional. Obviously. They are spending like drunken sailors on shore leave. You can cut or raise taxes all you want. There simply is not enough money in the real universe, not the universe that the government is in anyways, to offset the amount of money they are spending. There won't be any government services lost. It's a lie. They're going to keep spending like drunken sailors. It doesn't matter who's in office. It really doesn't. Because this mindset, this bureaucracy, this Soviet style of overspending, spending so much more than what you take in, is so entrenched in the United States right now at the federal, state, and local levels. Although a lot of local communities are biting the bullet and not doing all the things that they want to do. I have to give them credit for that. It's just absolutely insane. It's so entrenched. I can't think of any way to actually get this entrenchment out of there with just one election. Yeah, obviously we got to get these clowns that are in there right now the hell out of there, because they're wrecking everything. I mean, when you look at this, these guys. I heard the speech today from Ohio. He's the president is in Ohio, and he's giving this big speech. Oh, I don't see anybody out of work here. It looks like everybody in Ohio has got a job. It's a fallacy. That's what it is. I mean, look at this. In the time that Obama's been in office, the number of people that have entered the workforce simply by population growth is 8 million people. 8 million. The last figure that I saw was 98,987,000. That's 98,987,000 people that have just given up looking for a job. 98 million. Add that 8 million to that. And they've added like a million jobs. How do you get growth out of that? Somebody please tell me how you get growth out of that. Because I'm just simply not understanding the math that they're using. The population growth itself, just from people being born and becoming of working age and graduating from college, it just doesn't work. It's insane. And now let's go on to something else. I've been holding on to so many things while I was sick. And it'd be nice to get them all out on one show, but obviously I'm not. I'm going to be able to do 2 or 3 stories here on the show, but I want to stay with the political stuff for just a few more minutes before we get on to the natural disasters news. There's a lot of brouhaha that came up a couple of weeks ago about all of these magical videotapes that suddenly start appearing that seem to be surfacing magically. All of a sudden, poof, there they are. These videotapes. You got a videotape of Obama talking about redistribution. And we didn't need the videotape to tell us about that because, I mean, just look at what the guy is doing. Then you get a videotape surfacing of Mitt Romney talking about the 47% of the population in the United States that live off the teat of the public benefits. And that deal there is the rub. That's the rub that conservatives like us talk about behind closed doors. Because, and I'm going to go off script here a little bit, off of my written monologue a little bit, you can't have a functioning republic, a democratic republic like what we have that was designed. You can't have that when half of the population is living off of some type of government benefit program. There just aren't enough people to pay taxes, to pay for all of that and everything else that the government needs to do. That's the big fallacy of this Keynesian economic model that this administration is following. It's borderline criminal, but that's my opinion. And I mean, it's insane. At any rate, this is the type of thing that conservatives talk about behind closed doors. And don't give me any spiel or comments on the YouTube page or on the show page or anything else about how you're not a conservative. Half of you are muttering right now about being libertarian, and there's nothing wrong with that. But congratulations, because libertarian is the French word for conservative. If you believe in the way this country was set up, if you believe that we should not be shoving the teat of free crap to everyone, if you believe that we have a sovereign right to keep and hold our truths to be sacred, then you, in fact, are a conservative. Stop lying to yourselves. And just to make it clear, those of us that are awake know what the word keep means. It means what's mine is mine, and you can't have it. Does that sound selfish to you? It sounds selfish to a lot of people. What keep means is what's mine is mine, and you can't have it. The studio, everything in the studio, I purchased through my work, the money that I earned. I purchased all of this through that. I intend to keep it. What's mine is mine. If you want something, go out and earn it. Work for it. So I have a series of questions for those of you that doubt all of this. Since when was working 60 hours a week for what I have, working all the time to make ends meet, working to get just a little bit more every day, to succeed at something, when did that become selfish? It is not selfish to succeed. Sure, why not? Let's all go watch Dancing with the Stars or something. Let's just forget about working and succeeding at anything. And now we're being told through the magical videotape that surfaced that our dear leader, Nero Obama, has said in the past that he believes in the redistribution model of taking for one group and giving it to another. You can see it at work right now in the structure of the United States of America. It's happening right now. All you got to do is take off the blinders, just raise the glasses just a little bit, and you will see that that is what is going on right now. But how about this? I have done the math. If you want to do the redistribution of wealth program, I've done the math. Over the years, I've had several thousands of dollars worth of material goods stolen through break-ins and thefts. Are those of us who've had goods stolen or shoplifted going to get some of that magical redistribution? No, of course not, because, well, they deserve it more than you do. Now, speaking of liars, I see in the alternative media that the next solar cycle is upon us, solar cycle 25 or something like that. And everybody is a Twitter because NASA says it's going to be a giant, epic proportion solar cycle, which led me to think this morning while I was driving down the road, it led me to think that the people that are always calling NASA liars and disinformation agents are now the same ones that are all a Twitter about their news about the solar cycle, which leads me to a point that really what people should do is they should really get their own information about the activities that are going on at the sun. All of the information is out there. You can get the essentially live shots of what's going on the sun. There are many satellites up there observing the sun. We won't even go into why they have so many satellites observing the sun at this particular time in human history, but you can get the information. I will, on the YouTube channel, I'll have a link to my private homepage that I only give to friends and other people that I trust, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. Because in one of the columns, I have, in fact, let me go over here and call up my personal homepage, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about right here. Let me bring that up on the screen so that you can see what I'm talking about. Here we go. This is just a rather simple WordPress installation that I use for my personal homepage. Over here on the sidebar, as you can see, I have your silver prices, your gasoline prices, and your crude oil prices, and that collapses so you don't have to see it. We also have links to all of the alternative media here, news, alternative media sites. You got all kinds of different news sites. You got your social networking sites. You've got some really cool transportation sites, so you can see different harbors and the live cams they have there, live cams of actual trains and whatnot. But we also have, now let me see if I can, and of course I've got this stupid floating menu here, so let me go like this so you can see this. And you can see right over on the right hand side there, the blue bar on the right-hand side of the screen. We have a live map of the world ocean temperatures. We have the latest gamma ray burst information, a satellite surface map, the NAMS 60-hour forecast, U.S. radar loop, the current Midwest surface plot, the U.S. visible surface, various weather service pages for my friends and myself. You got your national weather, you got your space weather, you got your SWPC electric power warnings from the NOAA about the various solar cycles and everything. You've got your sun CME animation, and you've got the latest jet stream and the latest national radar. And of course, everybody has, I'm sure, seen this. This is your latest plot of the various CMEs and everything, your latest animation. I'll let you go ahead and decipher what that means, but we have all of that kind of stuff up at the site. Now let's get on to our first story here. And I am going to take a quick break here while I call up all of the various things. I will be back in just a minute, and you can see, go ahead and read the first part of the story that we are going to have, because my throat has gotten rough and I have to take a break for a minute to get something to drink real quick, a glass of water or fruit juice, and I will be right back. Enjoy the music for a moment.
I've been fishing your fishing pool like some crazy man-eared angling fool. I hope one day you'll swim my way, then this trodden line I'll just back away. Taste as sweet as country fish, your big red lips you'll let me kiss. But when you've gone, I'll just swim away. Another fish, babe, another day. Life's as bleak as an empty dish when you're away. I sit and fish all alone. I grill my soul.
Helps if you take the microphone off of mute. I am back. We are all set to go here. Let's talk about the first story. You remember at the beginning of August, middle of August, when I started joking around about the heart attack gun and them shooting me with the heart attack gun just before I started having heart problems. Go figure. You can watch a replay from last night's show if you want to know more about that. At any rate, the story that I was covering then, excuse me just for a minute. My voice is starting to get very hoarse, so I'm probably not going to be able to cover this entire story on account of my yammering about politics for 10 minutes. This first story comes to us from our friends in Assumption Parish at the site of the giant sinkhole. And I have some photographs of the giant sinkhole. There's one photograph that I believe is a part of the sinkhole, and here's another photograph of another part of the sinkhole. At any rate, wow, do you speak English much? Since I last left you in August, the sinkhole has grown in size, and the scope of it is enlarging by the day. I believe it's, I believe in the past 24 hours, today is, today's the 29th? Is that what it is? Hold on a second, let me check the date. Yes, today is the 27th, I believe. Let me check all my calendars here. I believe today is the 27th of September, according to my calendars here. It has, in the past 24 hours, I believe it has grown by 5,000 square feet. The sinkhole has. It's in Assumption Parish down there in Louisiana. I, of course, have some thoughts on this particular situation, and I figure this is either a situation from hell or by the divine hand of God. Stick with me on this. This is, I came up with this earlier today, and it's one of those thought processes where I came up with this, and it just popped into my head, so those are the kind of stories I like to do. There is now, at the site of the sinkhole, some new developments. I have actually rewritten this twice because things are happening so quickly. The sinkhole has expanded an additional 5,000 square feet over the past day. And now, 3 miles to the west, there is more bubbling of gas. And it seems, from the information that I've seen, that it would be, that it's more likely that it would be from a ruptured pipeline. Probably either butane or natural gas. Let me see here. Okay, here is the source of the article that I'm talking about right now. It's called ENEWS, ENENEWS.com. It's an energy news site. A lot of people haven't heard about it, but they have excellent information and stories. Now, you can see that if you've ever watched the show, what is it called, Swamp People, you know that you've got all the different guys. It's about guys that do alligator hunting during the alligator season, because the population, it's like the white-tailed deer up here in Michigan. The population gets so thick, you got to thin them out, so they have a hunting season for the things. And these guys make a living at it. Most of these guys are in Pierre Par. It's spelled P-A-R-T, but they pronounce it Pierre Par. And if you've ever watched the show, you know you got all the different guys. You got, can't remember half the guys' names, but one of the guys' name is Troy, and every time he catches an alligator, at some point, every single time, he always goes, "Shoot him! Shoot him! Quick, shoot him!" It's funny as hell. At any rate, the bubbling is now coming up in Pierre Par. It is, as you can see on this right here, you can see that before it was previously bubbling. The bubbles that are bubbling that's coming up out of the ground previously were it was 1.00306 miles away from the main sinkhole. Now, over in Pierre Par, it is 2.88138 miles, what they are calling 3 miles. Close enough to be called 3 miles. You can see the difference in these two maps that I have here on the screen. The difference in the distance between the two farthest reaching areas of bubbling. This is very upsetting. You can, man, I wish I had a good pointer on this thing, but I don't. Let me see. Okay, yeah, you can see the mouse pointer right there on the screen. This lower one right here, this one right here, you can see this town right here. It's 1 mile away from the main sinkhole. In the second view, in this top map right here, that one is actually right here. So the one that's right here is actually up here, right here, on this second map. And you can see how far away now the bubbling is. Now, it is most likely coming from some type of a ruptured pipeline, probably butane or natural gas. Now, if that's the case, it is a true worst case scenario that would feature great effects, such as unreal increases in the end consumer cost here in Michigan and on the East Coast states. And that is because the pipelines that go down through there come from the refineries in Louisiana, Texas, and whatnot. And these pipelines bring us our natural gas, gasoline, heating oil, butane, things like that. If these pipelines rupture, it is going to create a problem in the delivery of vital supplies to the East Coast and parts of the Midwest, including parts of Michigan. However, in Michigan, we have a fairly rich natural gas deposit under the Antrim Shale deposit up in northern Michigan. That said, a certain amount of exporting of that gas would be in order if these pipelines have to be shut down and there is no replacement. You'll recall that because of the drought, there are parts of the Mississippi River that are closed, so they can't barge up the heating oil, gasoline, and everything else right now. So it is, in fact, a world-class, worst-case scenario disaster. The political ramifications from this can be enormous. The atmosphere right now would be ripe to blame the entire thing on one side of the political spectrum or the other. Bush approved the Deepwater Horizon well, and the ever-popular Obama stop the pipeline argument would be the cry from both sides, but neither would hold water, except, of course, for the sheeple, who would only hear the blame Bush side on the mainstream media. Now, the western edge of the Salt Dome, this is the Salt Dome, is where this problem lies. There are several salt domes, and it's kind of difficult to explain verbally, and I don't have any graphics to go along with this, but in these salt caverns, they use them to store material. One of them was being used to store radioactive waste. One of them is part of the National Petroleum Reserves. One of them is owned, the parent company is Chevron, and they have, I believe, let me look here and see if I have that particular figure. I believe it's 8 billion cubic feet of natural gas stored in there. Got that? 8 billion cubic feet of natural gas. What do you think that these salt domes have ruptured? Okay, they drilled down into one of the tops of the salt domes and where the sinkhole is. They've discovered the entire complex has been compromised. So that natural gas storage, gone. The butane storage that everybody was up in arms about a few weeks ago, gone. Possibly this is also affecting the strategic petroleum reserves, which is not a good thing. Let's go back to the article here. Now, the gas, the western edge of the Salt Dome is around Bayou Corn and Pierre Par. It's not on top of the dome itself. That's the thing. This bubbling that's coming from 3 miles away is not part of this dome complex. And even with the walls of the salt dome collapsing, the gas from the dome would likely not travel that far unless there was a natural cave in the limestone carrying it. A pipeline shifting could pull sections free miles away, which is probably what happened, and you won't hear about that on the news. It could also be the fault, the area that is collapsing somehow what's called communicating, or in other words, cracks in the rock structure, the limestone structure, carrying gas from the collapsed domes over to this area, because it is at what they've measured it as 950 pounds per square inch. That's pretty high pressure. Now, swamp gas, some people have thought that maybe this bubbling up is swamp gas. It's not constant like that. So it must be either from one of two things. Either some type of leakage from another storage area, one of the other storage caverns, or some other type of natural gas from the formation surrounding the salt dome. These formations are rich and extend right down the Mississippi Canyon and are partially formed by methyl hydrates. That would be frozen methane, frozen methane that makes up much of the seabed of the Gulf of Mexico. Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi share geology in a direct line with that area of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, those of you that pay attention to the alternative media and know more about the Deepwater Horizon tragedy than the normal sheeple type person that is currently probably watching Dancing with the Stars or America's Favorite Home Videos or something like that. You know what the Mississippi Canyon is, and that's part of the structure of the Gulf of Mexico where the Deepwater Horizon was located. So this sinkhole may have a direct relation to the Deepwater Horizon accident / tragedy. Okay, you got that? This is all interconnected. Now let's go back to the article. At the time of the Deepwater Horizon, there was discussion about the color of the substances coming up from the Macondo, Mississippi Canyon Block number 252 after the rig sank. Now, from watching it via webcams, and this is just my opinion right here, from watching it by webcams, it's my opinion that we can't really tell the colors because of the artificial lighting needed that deep under the water. Unless someone has some sort of a really great color key from the remote camera, and there wasn't one at the time, muttering about the color of the spewing material is not worthy of discussion. But I have found a lot of forum discussion chatter about it. So I need to mention that in case somebody sends me an email and says, Bill, what about the color of the stuff spewing from the Deepwater Horizon? So I thought I'd put that to rest right away. Now, there was also speculation that the Deepwater Horizon accident, the tragedy, had set off a chain of events that could extend underground northward from the Mississippi Canyon prospect up to Louisiana. I remember seeing that information myself, right in writing in some scientific articles, and filed it at the back of my fertile mind because I knew someday I would need that information. However, there appears to be a certain amount of scrubbing from the Google results about that type of information. And I, as your erstwhile host, and being talented in many of the aspects of the internet, I will begin using other search engines as well as a limited web crawler that I have to see if I can find some more information. Watch for a future show about that. The best explanation that I found that is better than any other explain the characteristics of the Macondo well blowout was drawn up by B.K. Lim. His theory was that Transocean had hit the side of a salt dome. Got that? The big sinkhole is a bunch of salt domes collapsing. And B.K. Lim thought that the Deepwater Horizon tragedy was because they hit the side of a salt dome. The hot escaping fluids that rushed up through the fault lines were melting the ethyl methyl hydrate floor, which melts down at that depth at 0 degrees centigrade, and could result in an unstoppable venting until the reservoir ran dry or the pressure was equalized with the outside. That is an interesting theory. You see how all of this ties together. The Deepwater Horizon and the Mississippi Trench, or whatever it's called, and this sinkhole in Louisiana all seem to be tied together. Now, another aspect of this is that this will set off the New Madrid fault. A lot of people are talking about right now. That would cause massive damage if it did the same thing that it did once before, a massive earthquake. And that was before modern civilization and all of the population moved into the Midwest. That would, if a 7.8 or an 8.0 earthquake hit in the Midwest, it would go from Michigan right down to the Gulf Coast, and it would be absolutely devastating because none of the buildings east of the Mississippi are rated for earthquakes. Now, that might not be the case at all. Consider that the New Madrid, if my understanding is correct, is actually a slippage type of fault. If this thing is actually connected to what's going on in Louisiana, then the escaping fluid, they are getting hydrocarbon fluids up out of these salt domes right now. This escaping fluid would provide a lubrication effect on the fault itself, making any earthquake much smaller in scope. I know that sounds far out. I'm probably going way to hell out on a limb here with one of the squirrels in my backyard. But that in a logical way, it makes sense. Geologically, it might. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me on that. Not to mention that this could be a stress-releasing type of event. In other words, the New Madrid fault might not go off at all. Remember, and this is a key thing to remember here, a lot of us in this country, and to a lesser extent around the world, a lot of us know and understand what is going on here in the United States and the powers of evil that are trying to destroy the country that we live in. A lot of us have been praying. We have been praying hard and long to God that He would save us, preventing a situation where the often mentioned martial law would be imposed, which, if the New Madrid fault goes off and there is, God forbid, an 8.0 or around that magnitude earthquake, it would devastate a major part of the United States. And that would probably lead to the often mentioned martial law concept, which would be imposed, which would harm many of the people. And this event, believe it or not, in Louisiana, with all of this connected and everything else, while it might seem like a horrible, horrible tragedy, this could actually be divine intervention to keep that New Madrid fault line from going off, which is interesting. I invite you to look at both possibilities. Take each possibility and look at it. from what you know of world history, of Bible history. Think about how God operates, and think about how the evil side also operates. Take a look at both sides. See what you think. At any rate, my voice is getting a little bit too sore to continue. I'm starting to get a very scratchy throat. I don't know if you can hear it over the microphone. So we are going to bid everybody a fond adieu tonight. And remember, if you start getting chest pains, if you start having trouble breathing, if you have a cough where you're not getting any phlegm up, get to the doctor. Don't let it go too far. Trust me, I know from personal experience. So, at any rate, my name is Bill Zam. I would like to thank everybody for stopping by if you happen to be watching the show. And we will see you on our next broadcast, probably tomorrow night. Have a good evening.